Hello, I wanted to spend a few minutes looking at the monster manual that you can purchase for both Roll20 on their marketplace and Fantasy Grounds on their store or Steam. Both of these products are virtual tabletops that allow players to play RPGs and other games from anywhere around the world. They're also great tools for enhancing your in person games as well, using something such as a large screen TV. For reference, I'm a pro subscriber on Roll20 and I hold an ultimate license in Fantasy Grounds, and in both cases, I've purchased the Monster Manual and kind of dabbled around with them and looked at those. Monster Manual is a great source material for any GM that's looking to add NPCs to their games and further enhance their encounters, whether or not they're purchasing pre made adventures or not. So that's why I originally had purchased the Monster Manual, and I've noticed some differences between these products. This video is not going to be a comparison between Roll20 and Fantasy Grounds in terms of their functional use while playing a game. We're specifically going to be looking at the Monster Manual. Now, we may be looking at a few things that get into technically how these systems work, but that's not the focus of this video. What I want to show is where do you get the content? What do you get? What are some of the good things? And of course, what are some of the bad things? Because neither one of these products is perfect. I'm going to start by showing where you can purchase this content on either one of these systems. On Roll20, you'll find this within their marketplace. You can search simply for the Monster Manual or content created by Wizards of the Coast. You'll notice I own it here. In Fantasy Grounds, you can purchase this in their online store or on Steam, and likewise, you can simply search for the Monster Manual or search for content created by Wizards of the Coast. That's the first important thing to note. This is content provided by Wizards of the Coast. The next thing we'll look at is the price. Now, there is some disparity here. Notice on Roll20 it's $50, on Fantasy Grounds it's $30. Now, there's a big disparity there, and you could argue that that's a reason why you're going to go with one system or not. That's fine. What I don't like is when people sit there and they complain about a price for a product they don't have to purchase. Neither one of these systems forces you to buy a monster manual to include custom NPCs in your games. What these products are providing is a massive time savings, and I saw value on both platforms. I didn't even hesitate at this cost. When I look at a new game for the Xbox One or the PS4 and the cost I'm going to pay for that for 30 hours of enjoyment, this is a bargain. I've already used the Monster Manual and Roll20 for over 13 months, and it's been an indispensable resource. And now that I'm starting to look at Fantasy Grounds a little bit, I see the same value there. I don't have to look for images. I don't have to look up stat blocks. I don't have to enter anything incorrectly. It saves me a ton of time, and everything's already there. So before we go down there, one of the things I'm going to do in the future is I'm looking at potentially doing a kind of a review of both of these virtual tabletops, and I'd be looking for advice in the comments below. However, the one thing I'll say is comments complaining about price, I'm really not going to answer them. They don't warrant anything. So sorry about my rant about that. I just really don't like when people complain about price for something they don't have to buy. If this is unaffordable for you, then maybe this is the wrong hobby for you to be in. So with that, what do you get with this? Well, in both cases, you get in Roll20, you get circular tokens featuring original artwork from Wizards of the Coast. Over here, you'll see that you get 366 monster tokens to represent your monsters on tactical combat maps. Basically the same things there. You get monster descriptions and lore, as well as additional Wizards of the Coast artwork available in the Bio and Info tab. Here, this refers to the monsters in images to share with your players as handouts during play, full descriptions, and then finally completely filled out stats viewable in the abilities and attribute tabs and designed for use with the official character sheet. Kind of the same thing over here. We're going to now take a look at these functionally to see what that really means and kind of where you find this content. So I've already purchased it, so we're going to go ahead and we're going to go into Roll20 and both Fantasy Grounds. I'm running this on an ultra wide monitor, so hopefully this works for showing both of these products side by side. We'll start with Roll20. Where do you find this content once you've purchased it? Well, up at the top of your screen in Roll20 is a compendium. This is where all the content that you've purchased for a particular game system appears. I happen to own the Player's Handbook and the Monster Manual, and you'll see that monsters are easily accessible by clicking on Monsters. These are all the individual monsters found in here. Inside of Fantasy Grounds, it is a little bit different. The first thing you need to do whenever you start a new campaign inside of Fantasy Grounds is you need to go to Modules and choose which content you want to load. This is a subtle difference because Fantasy Grounds is run as an installed application where Roll20 runs completely in a browser in the cloud. So we're going to choose to load the Monster Manual. And while I'm here, I'm going to go ahead and load some pre-made battle maps that come with this. So let's go ahead and we'll close this at this point. And once I've loaded that up, you can find in the folders over here on the side, NPCs. We can find pretty much all the same NPCs. Now I want to find a terrifying enemy to present to my players. And I can do this several different ways. If I have the name of the enemy that I'm looking for, I can just type it in. But both systems offer a nice, convenient way to filter this down. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to start in Roll20 by choosing to filter the results. This filter allows you several different ways. Challenge rating is one of the best. I'm going to go ahead here and I'm going to choose a CR 1/4 challenge. Like I said, I wanted something very terrifying. And then we're going to go ahead and choose type. Now, I know I want it to be a humanoid type, and one of the things I really like about Roll20 is they filter their humanoid types down even further. So for example, if I knew I wanted a goblinoid, I could choose that, but likewise, I could simply just choose humanoid in this case. And I'm going to go ahead and do that, and I'm going to apply those filters. We can see that we have all of our 1/4 humanoid creatures. Inside of Fantasy Grounds, we can do the same thing. We can filter by challenge rating, and we can filter by type. This is a little bit less granular. We can't choose the individual humanoid types, but you can see it does filter it down to probably well, I don't know what it is, 10 or 12 different types that I'd want to work with right here. And I see what I'm looking for, but maybe I want to filter it down just a little bit more. So another way you could do this is you could always come in here and you could just type in what you're looking for. You can see that as I start typing here, this filters out. One thing I'll point out, when you start typing for the name of a creature inside of Roll20, it is going to search everything you own. That includes all the monsters that include the word goblin, but also any proficiencies. So for example, language here. It wouldn't just be proficiencies, it could be anything that contains that name. If we go back to our filters here, I also believe I could have typed the name into here. So if I expand this a little bit, quarter type, we know we want humanoid, and we could type GOB, something like that, apply filters, and we can see we filtered it down to a goblin. Now in both of these cases, I can go ahead and I can click on these and I get vastly different information. Initially, you'll see that the information contained is actually quite the same. Over in Roll20, what we get is pretty much the content verbatim, including images out of the Monster Manual. I really like this. I like the piece of artwork that I get here. I like that I get all the description and background information regarding the goblin. And then as I scroll down, I can see the traits, the actions, and then finally, I can see a very WotC stylized stat block for the goblin here. Inside of Fantasy Grounds, it's a little bit different. The first thing you're presented with is the stat block. This contains all the information that you really need to play this goblin inside of a game. All the other information we talked about previously is found in the other tab. So diverging a little bit to talk about the systems, Fantasy Grounds Roll20 uses a more WotC styled content, where Fantasy Grounds uses kind of these dialogue windows with tabs on the side. It does take a little bit getting used to knowing where to find everything here. But all the content is here, and you'll notice an image is also available here. They just can't embed images in all of these, though I've seen it in a few cases. When I click on this, I do get an image, and one thing I really like about Fantasy Grounds is the ability, when my players first encounter this goblin, they can very easily right-click and choose to share this image with them, and it will pop up on their screens. This is very nice, but what it means is that I've got a stat block for an NPC goblin, and I also have in my images I have a whole host of images for all of my different NPCs right here. So I have 2 different pieces of content that relate to each NPC. Now, that's not that big of a deal, but I am going to use that to kind of back up what I'm going to do over here in Roll20 a little bit. So let's go ahead, and I want to share that image or that goblin image with my players. So one thing a little bit different about Roll20 is everything in your current game runs out of an area called your journal. To add this goblin to my journal, what I need to do is actually add him to the game. And I do that by simply dragging and dropping him. And you'll notice that once I do this, it opens up what's called a character sheet inside of Roll20. And if I go over to my journal, you can see that it's added a new goblin here. Now, every goblin that I drag out of my compendium from here on out will simply be a copy of this one that is already in my game. That's something to kind of wrap your head around. Basically, what I'm doing is I'm pulling a goblin out of the library and adding it to my game. It's not a lot different than loading a module and then having all of them loaded into my game. So it's just a little bit different in how you get there. Now, one of the things you'll note here is this is a character sheet that can be shared with players. And this is a bit of a frustration for me, but they throw all of the content that we saw on that page right here in the bio and info tab. This is an area that the players will see if I share this with them. Now, to correct this, all I do is choose Edit. I select all the content out of the bio and info, and I cut it, and I paste it down to the DMs section. Now, in a moment, I'll show you the character sheet. We don't even require this information, the actions and traits. We really don't need that there. But maybe my players do know a little bit of information, such as all of this. I'm going to actually cut this again. Oops. And we'll go. I did not want that like that. Let's do this. Cut, and we'll just change this back to normal. They've just recently changed some of their stuff here, so let's undo this. Normal. I don't know why it's preserving that. And I'll go to save. Now, when I share this with my players by clicking show to players, they'll see this entry show up. You can see this dot shows me that it's been shared with them. This will show up in their journal wherever I place it in my journal. Now, they won't see things. I don't know why I can't get this to reorder. There we go. It'll show up at the bottom of their journal in this instance. They'll see the token representation, the full-size image, and all of this text. Anything in the GM notes, they'll never see. GM notes are something I do like about Roll20. The character sheet is something that only the GM or players that have been given access to edit and control these can see. And ultimately, you can see that this contains the same information there. Now, I had mentioned wanting to add multiple goblins. I can simply drag another one out, and you'll notice that in my journal, it did not, in fact, add another goblin. Now, a few things to do here. What do we get on these sheets? Now, I've added 2 goblins to an encounter here. I should mention what I need to do inside of Fantasy Grounds. Roll20 is map-based, where Fantasy Grounds is really based off of this concept of a combat tracker, where I can drag NPCs onto there, and then from there, I can add them to a map. So I'm going to open a map up. We'll make it a little bit smaller. And then I kind of drag these guys out off from here. And notice that they come in hidden initially. Now I could have done that here too. I can easily make those hidden if I want to. Notice inside of Fantasy Grounds, it did automatically roll their initiatives. Inside of Roll20, when I start the turn order, all I need to do is select the goblin and say I want to roll his initiative. And I can do this for both of these. And their initiatives have been rolled for me. You'll notice that they're grayed out because they're not shared with the players, but as soon as I make them visible, they'll appear to the players. Same thing right here, I can make them available. Okay, so we've looked at what we get, where do we find them. Let's take a look at how they function in a game really quick. And again, I don't want to focus too much on the technical aspects of the software, but we kind of have to here. What you get inside of each application is a way to access all these stats utilizing the built-in chat or other combat mechanisms in the platform. So for example, this goblin wants to make an attack on this goblin. One thing I should know is the health here. In Roll20, I've created really simple macros to randomize the health. We use what we call a double roll system. Here, I'm just going to use the average health. And you can see here, it configures these tokens for the way I like to use them in my game. Inside of Fantasy Grounds, you can probably get an extension that does the exact same thing. I don't know of any way built into the system. This was a macro I wrote. It was really simple to do. So, okay. So next thing I want to do is I want to look at how do attacks work. So let's say this goblin right here, he's going to come up and he's going to make an attack. Inside of Roll20, I can choose how I want to roll up here. I say I'm going to make an attack with a scimitar. I compare it. I say you hit. I click attack. It does 5 damage. I subtract 5 damage off of the NPC. It's pretty easy to do. Then the goblin maybe uses his nimble escape capability, which I can see right here. And he's going to escape. And then he's going to go ahead and he's going to try to hide. And I'm going to hide this roll from the players. And he's going to fail miserably. So I'm not going to hide him. If I did, maybe I would hide him something like that. But he rolled a 1. Let's look at the same thing over here. Here, the turn order is kind of done this way. We can see, I'm not sure which goblin is which, to be honest. Goblin 1, right here. Same thing, he's going to come up. It works a little bit differently here. Now, I can open the character sheet at any time, and I could roll off from this character sheet, but one of the nice things they've done here is they have all the rolls here. I can manually roll it just like so, and I could do the manual comparison and say, yes, you hit. I could roll the damage, and then I could go ahead and I could say you scored 2 wounds on that goblin. Notice I'm doing the damage here, not on the tokens out here. This isn't something I'm a super big fan of. I like the cross highlighting over here so I know which is which. Again, not getting into systems. One thing to point out about Fantasy Grounds that is system related though is they do automate some of these tasks. You can actually drag the attack roll right onto a goblin right here and it will automatically tell me it hit. This does eliminate your ability as a GM from making an enemy tougher or changing something. I'm not a big fan of that. I don't like to fudge rolls, so I'm perfectly fine with this. I know some DMs just make stuff up. So, and then I can roll the damage, and you can see here that I scored 4 damage and it automatically applied it. Let's remove that initial 2 that we did there. And then same thing, he's going to make his nimble escape. He's going to run away, and now he wants to make a stealth check. In this case, I do need to pull up his character sheet because stealth isn't one of the things on here. And I'm going to make this roll, but I don't want it to be public. I'm going to drop it in this thing called the dice tower over here. And I can see that it's a 13, and maybe that's enough to beat the passive perception. So he's going to go ahead and hide. So that's basically how it works. A couple notes here. I did mention it's very easy for me at any time to open up my current player's NPC sheet. Inside of Roll20, if you want to access their sheet, you can get to it one of 2 very convoluted ways. Well, 3. First, you could go over to your journal and click here and then toggle back. That's very annoying. You can hold the shift key, double click on a token, and it will bring you up to the bio and info tab, and then you can go to the character sheet. Or you can hold the alt key and double click on a token, and it will bring you to the attributes and ability, and then go to the character sheet. I'm going to make this very clear. I think that there is no way to double click on a token and bring it right to the character sheet. And I think this is a horrible implementation. I think it's terrible. It's the one thing that really bothers me about Roll20. I wasn't going to try to go too negative, but this is a massive pet peeve of mine. As a GM, I'm constantly opening character sheets, and not having a quick way to get to them is a huge pain point for me. So I'll leave it at that. I will complain about that in every video that I ever show Roll20 until they fix it, because I hate the fact that I can't, with one double click, get to the character sheet. It's the most important part of running a game or playing a game. Okay. So with that, I'm done complaining. Let's talk about some of the ugly with both systems when it comes to this. So let's go over here. We're going to look at a few different things. So we've kind of seen all these have clickable things here. Let's open this up. Let's go to the character sheet. Saves, things like that. You can just click on the stats here. Here they have a save. So if there was a bonus modifier, it would be loaded into here. If the goblin had a bonus to a save, it would be listed down here, etc. It's pretty straightforward how these work. Fantasy Grounds, you can double click in here and get the exact same results that we did before. You can make the damage roll and the attack roll if you didn't want to use the in combat methods. So just a FYI on that. All right, so now I want to talk about a couple of the glaring missed opportunities that both systems have. They're different, but each one has them, and there's no getting around this. I had mentioned at the beginning of the game, the number one thing that I bought this content for was to save me lots of time. And I'm going to show you where I'm going to be spending time on these, and this is a huge pain point for me. Let's go to NPCs. Let's clear all of our filters here. And let's take a look at the Acolyte for both systems here. So I'm going to go to Monsters, and I'm going to go to the Acolyte here. Actually, I'm going to drag him into my game, because remember I have to do that to add him to my game. And I'm going to open him up here. And let's close this. I got to reopen the combat tracker. I'm going to clear all of this, and I'm going to add the Acolyte to my combat tracker, and I'm going to go to my images and maps, and I'm going to open this guy back up. And let's start in Fantasy Grounds, because I think Fantasy Grounds is probably the bigger offender when it comes to what did I purchase. And I think this is probably why there's a $20 discrepancy between these products. Notice the token. It's an A. I bought the monster manual for all of this gorgeous artwork that I have right here. So if there's one great thing I can say about Roll20, I've heard that WotC doesn't have official artwork for these NPCs, and that's why they don't have it. I don't know what Roll20 did, if they pulled them out of other adventure paths, if they had them commissioned, if they got them from somewhere else, and I don't even always know that they're the right piece of artwork. This Acolyte, let's be frank, is quite scary. That's not, when I think of an Acolyte, I think of like a church boy, you know, like lighting candles and stuff like that. This is not an Acolyte. So anyway, but I still have a piece of artwork to work with right here to get me started. Inside of Fantasy Grounds, this is missing. And this is not just an Acolyte. If I come over here to the NPCs, I'm going to randomly kind of go through this. Let's take a look. Air Elemental has one. So here's where they're listed. The Allosaurus, okay, he has one. We're doing pretty good here. Let's look at the Ape. Nope, don't even have one for a simple gorilla right here. Let's look over here. Look at that. I don't have a big piece of artwork, but I sure got an ape, right? How about an ape? How about a baboon? Nope, I just get a B. How about a bandit? I don't even have a bandit. Let's go a little bit more. How about a bat? We gotta have a. Don't have a bat. Berserker. Nope. Black pudding. Yep, we have a black pudding. Brown bear. Nope. Camel. Nope. Cloud giant. Okay, we do there. Crab. Nope. There is, I would guess, having looked through this, probably 30% of the NPCs are missing artwork. I was really disappointed, and I understand why this is $20 cheaper than the other one now. And I'm not one to come in here and price compare and stuff like that, but I was really disappointed. So a lot of these NPCs, when I drag them out into my game, they're not ready to go, and I have to go out and find artwork, and I have to turn it into a token. And then I have to go into this tokens thing, and then I have to open this folder up where they're all stored, and I've added my own in here. And then I got to go back and edit the character sheet and add them. It's kind of a pain, and I was really disappointed about this. It's actually turned me off from buying more of this official content. If it's just text, there's actually really fast ways to load text into Fantasy Grounds if I'm just going to have to grab my artwork anyway. I mean, I can go get it from D&D Beyond. So anyway, that's that. That's my big complaint inside of Fantasy Grounds. And that was a sore letdown for me. I'm not going to lie. I want Fantasy Grounds to succeed. I love the people that work there. They're a very small company trying to do some really cool stuff. They're extremely friendly. I follow them on all the social media platforms. I hope the best for them, and I hope they fix this because I'd love to come back and do a review about how they have all this artwork. Let's go look at Roll20. Roll20 has all the artwork inside of it, which is something I absolutely love. I know that my player casts Polymorph and he wants to turn somebody into a Tyrannosaurus Rex. Look at this. Boom, there it is. I have two of them for some reason, though. I don't know why. But I can drag this guy out. I've got a token. It's got all the information I need on it. It's got the character sheet. It's ready to go. Don't have to do any more work. Super easy. But let's talk about something they're missing here. This is a spellcaster. Something Roll20 has really missed the ball on, and I've done a review on this in the past, is none of their spellcasting NPCs have any of their spells added to the spellcasting area. I honestly don't know why they even added a spellcasting area if that's the case. Likewise, there have been recently, now I'm going to give them a little bit of credit. They're going through some growing pains. They're coming out with more official content recently, such as the player's handbook and this new character sheet. So they are in the middle of some extensive bug testing. I'm not fanboying them. This needs to be fixed. This formatting is bad, right? So I've got to come in here. This is not readable. And now I got to go add all these spells here. And this isn't no small task either. Remember, the thing that I bought the monster manual for was for time savings. And now I have to come in here and I have to go in this list and I have to find all these spells. I've got to add light. I've got to add sacred flame. And heaven forbid I misspell something, which I will do. So there's all my cantrips. The good thing is this the search in here is really, really good. So I can easily find this. It's just as good over in Fantasy Grounds. I'm not going to lie there. All right, so I've added all my spells here. And now it's ready to go. And it's ready to go in my campaign because I've added this acolyte. Remember what I mentioned. Once they're brought into my campaign, I'll continue to always reference the same one here. Let's kind of sort these guys out a little bit. There are ways to sort. I normally wouldn't put these at my top level either. So now all my spells are in here. They're set up properly. I will say this. So Fantasy Ground has all the spells. They're ready to go. I don't have to do anything. And in fact, remember that fancy little thing that we did where we can say make a dexterity saving throw? So there's my DC of 12. And then here's the damage, 1d8 radiant damage. I can roll my damage. If I want to increase the spell level, I drag it off. I right click to increase it a spell level. And I can roll 2d8. So it works pretty good right there, right? Over here, there's been some issues. This is a known issue. This bug has been reported. This will get fixed. And that's this at higher levels content should be getting added down here so that it knows to increase this later on. But this is not spell level. This is a higher level. So actually, as you increase in level, you'll have to increase this later on. I'll get into that. So anyway, one of the things to note here is I come over here to do the spell here. I'll click on Sacred Flame. It requires a DC check. Notice it didn't do that. So now I got to go in here, go, what is it? The dexterity saving throw. All they had to do was come into here and say it's a dexterity saving throw. Half damage on save. And now look, there we go. So now it's done properly the way it should have been done. So all of the spellcasters inside of Roll20 are missing this. And a lot of the spells are having problems, both for players and NPCs right now. That is a known issue, which they said they will fix, I think. Adding these to the character sheets was originally commented on that they would, but now that the PHB is out, I haven't seen it happen. So I don't know if this is still on a track to get fixed or not for like people who own both. I don't know how they're going to handle this. This is really annoying to me that I have to go through and I have to add this. It's really annoying to me over here that I'm missing a bunch of artwork. This at least has a fairly easy solution. This requires me to go out on Google and find this, or ultimately, if you own both of these, you just do this and you copy this image and then I bring it over there, right? I bought the content in both places. Anyway, so it is what it is. This is the monster manual in both of these products. I know at the end I got a little salty about it, but both products do save me a tremendous amount of time. Time is probably my single most valuable commodity, so I see a lot of value in these. And I'm probably going to be looking at other ones later on. I'm still in the middle of ultimately deciding which platform am I going to solely use moving forward. I would like to use just one. The problem is each platform serves a completely different audience, in my opinion, and that's really based on your players as a whole. So I'll be doing some more reviews in the future, kind of talking about some of those differences, because I think taking your players' technical skills into consideration is really important. I think Fantasy Grounds requires a much more technical player who likes to get in the weeds with software, where Roll20 is I log onto a web page and I can play. So anyway, hope you have a great day and hopefully you found this useful.